I'll be co-facilitating this webinar with my colleague, Vicky Kenny from the unceded traditional territory of Katsi First Nation. So I wonder, Vicky, if you briefly want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Alejandra. Welcome, everyone. My name is Vicky Kenny. I'm a yoga instructor focused on trauma-sensitive yoga, restorative yoga, prenatal, postnatal, and also yoga nidra, which is a yoga of sleep. I'm joining today from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. And I'm glad to be here sharing this time with all of you. Thank you, Alejandra.
Yeah, you're welcome, Vicky. Yeah, so with Vicky, we've been facilitating workshops on self-compassion over 6 weeks. So it's the first time that we're trying to condense all the information in
You're muted, Alejandra.
Thank you, Vicky. Yeah, so I was sharing that with Vicky, we've been facilitating self-compassion workshops over 6 weeks, and it's the first time that we are presenting information and self-compassion in a very condensed form. So we're hoping that by the end of the webinar, you're taking away some of the basic concepts on self-compassion, but most importantly, that you can start developing a healthy relationship with yourself based on self-kindness and self-love, because that will also reflect on the relationships that you have in your social settings and with your family and with your loved ones. So moving on to the next slide. So this webinar is brought to you by the Care for Caregivers, and we are very grateful for this opportunity. So we want to start this webinar by quoting this from Buddha: if your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete. Because for most of us, it's easier to show compassion to other people, but not necessarily to ourselves. Most of us didn't have the opportunity to learn how to be compassionate to ourselves when we make mistakes or when we face failures. So here it is. This is an opportunity to start reflecting on how we treat ourselves. So in this webinar, you are invited to explore how to increase compassion for yourself and others, promote self-acceptance, honor our human nature, and experience the benefits of mindfulness. We will spend 40 minutes sharing conceptual and practical information about self-compassion, and in addition, you will be invited to participate in mindful-based practices. So Vicky will be guiding you through those experiences. We will leave about 5 to 10 minutes for feedback at the end, and at that time we will be opening the chat, so feel free to share your experiences, or if you have any questions, that will be the time to bring them up. So we offer this webinar with the intention of sparking some interest in improving your relationship with yourself and thus enhancing your overall sense of well-being. I have been practicing counseling for over 15 years, and I noticed that most of us, to some extent, experience issues related to self-acceptance, unworthiness, and self-respect. I was interested in learning about self-compassion because it emphasizes the importance of cultivating healthy relationships and how to relate to us in a different form based on self-kindness and self-love. And when this happens, it has a positive impact on our overall sense of well-being. Now, the good news about self-compassion is that this is something that we can all learn at any stage of our life. Research continues to uncover outstanding social, physical, and psychological health benefits associated with self-kindness, such as increased motivation to overcome our failures, increase happiness, and self-worth enhancement. In 2003, Christine Neff found that increased self-love and levels of self-compassion are associated to lower levels of mental health symptoms. So a lot of good reasons to practice self-compassion. And now I'm going to hand it over to Vicky, who is going to guide us through a breath practice. So over to you, Vicky.
Thank you. Thank you, Alejandra. Thank you, everyone, for being here, for your presence today. And this is an invitation to gradually bring your attention back to your body and slowly allow your senses to turn inward, giving yourself the gift to be fully present, to actively listen and assimilate all the information and the practices that we are going to share during this time together. So just to clarify, there's no right or wrong here. If you're new to mindfulness practice, just follow my guidance as much as you can. If this type of practice does not resonate, just notice and observe that. And I invite you to set aside any expectations or judgment about what you are feeling or thinking in this very moment. If you are currently in an environment that is not ideal for this type of practice, maybe you're at work, just follow my voice and join doing the movements that are available to you, or imagine yourself making those movements. If for any reason movement is not available to you, stay still. And a reminder that we do not want to feel any pain or discomfort while we are moving our bodies. If that happens, go back to stillness as soon as you're able. If you are sitting on a chair, take a moment to notice the support of the chair underneath your sitting bones. Place the sole of the feet on the floor and start observing any sensations in the sole of the feet. You may close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, or just keep a soft gaze. And also notice your posture, how you are seated right now. Imagine now lengthening your spine from the tailbone all the way up the lower back, mid back, the upper back, the neck, all the way to the crown of the head. So find a very tall seat. Bring the head slightly behind, like you're placing the back of the head on an imaginary wall. Maybe you can start rocking the head gently side to side. And again, we don't want to feel any discomfort as we do these movements. If you feel any pain, stop the movement right away. And now, if available to you, I will invite you to start spreading your arms like wings to lengthen the sides of the torso. Interlace the fingers and press with the palms up towards the sky. And visualize your spine. Imagine creating a space in between each vertebra. Maybe you can open one side of the torso and the other side. Take a full breath in through the nose. And exhale through the mouth with a sigh or a sound as you release the arms down. And now you can repeat one more time. Inhale, bring the arms up. Maybe look up, interlace the fingers, palms away. Inhale a little bit more. And as you exhale, releasing through the mouth. Now, if it's available to you, maybe rolling the shoulders feels good. Bringing the shoulders forward, up to the ears and back and down. And repeat a few more times, releasing any tension in that area in between the shoulders and the neck. Now, whenever you feel this movement is complete, you can slowly go back to stillness. Softening the shoulders back and down, letting go of any holdings. connecting with your center and that space of stillness within. And now I invite you to bring your awareness to your breath and start observing how your breath travels through your body. If you like, you can bring one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly, softening the heart and softening the belly here. Otherwise, allow your hands to rest on your lap. And now become aware of your natural breath pattern without trying to control or change it. Just watch and observe the movement. You may find the breath to be fast or slow, deep or shallow. Whatever is happening, simply relax and witness the breath. Remain connected to every breath in, every breath out. If any thoughts come into the mind, just let them pass through and bring your attention back to the breath. Belly and chest rising as you inhale. Everything releasing down as you exhale. And gradually allow the inhalations and exhalations to become longer and softer. And now feel that the breath is becoming very quiet, very still, almost non-existent. Feel a profound sense of peace descending over your whole body and your being. Allow the mind to let go into it, merge into oneness. Connect with the vast, spacious field of awareness that you are. And now slowly start deepening your breath. Take a moment to notice the stillness within, any sensations in your body, and also observe your mood, the pace of your thoughts. Do you recognize any shifts or changes from when we started this practice just a few minutes ago? Now take a moment to slowly and mindfully come back into this shared virtual space. You can start bringing some gentle movements to your body. Do any movement that comes to you intuitively. Maybe rolling the hands, or maybe stretching again, or rolling the shoulders. As we get ready to continue with our agenda for this time together, thanks everyone for accepting the invite to share this practice and to go inward. And now I pass it back to Alejandra to continue with the core components of this presentation.
Thank you, Vicky. The intention of having this practice at the beginning of this webinar is to promote the opportunity to be fully present. I don't know about you, but myself, most of the time, I am very present in my head. So this is a reminder to connect to our breath as a way to be fully present and also notice what's going on in our body. So thanks again, Vicky. And now moving on to understanding compassion, and here is a quote from Pema Chodron. When we practice generating compassion, we can expect to experience the fear of our pain. So self-compassion requires to take a moment to acknowledge our own suffering. We connect with our vulnerability when practice compassion. Only when we acknowledge our own darkness, we're able to be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity, because suffering is a universal human experience. We may not be able to recognize our own suffering or the fact that we're suffering. We receive multiple messages from our society about the importance of being strong and not complaining. One of the disadvantages of living in a society that values independence and individual achievement is that when we don't reach our goals, we feel that we only have ourselves to blame. We can still take responsibility for our mistakes, but we don't need the harsh judgment. We can accept our shortcomings without compromising our self-kindness and our self-love. We do have everything we need. We are equipped. We do have all the resources to provide ourselves with the security and nurturance we need. So I would like to pause here for a brief moment and invite you, if you wish, to take a deep breath. Perhaps if it feels okay with you, you can place one hand on your heart and ask yourself, how do I treat myself when I make mistakes? And just stay there for a moment. Just notice what comes up for you. So now that we talk about compassion, let's move on to self-compassion. So Christine Neff describes self-compassion as a self-attitude construct that derives from Buddhist psychology. It requires developing the capacity to be kind towards oneself, experiencing our reality as part of the larger human experience, and holding suffering in mindful awareness. In short, it is the experience of extending compassion to ourselves. The practice of self-compassion helps us to recognize that there is strength in the face of failure. Now, given that self-compassion is an Asian construct, we need to be mindful of how this construct may be interpreted differently across cultures and how it relates to people's cultural belief system. So this is something to keep in mind as we may relate to it differently. Now, we included this slide here because sometimes there is a misunderstanding of what self-compassion is, and it can be confused with self-pity. So while self-pity is a self-centered practice, self-compassion acknowledges our shared humanity. Self-pity emphasizes egocentric feelings of separation from others, focusing on the poor me, and being consumed by emotional loneliness. Alternatively, self-compassion acknowledges that failing is a universal experience. So when we engage in self-compassion practices, we don't experience that sense of isolation and disconnection that is present with self-pity. When we fall into the self-pity vicious cycle, we become obsessed about our own issues and lose sight of the fact that suffering is a shared human experience. We tend to view ourselves as the only ones who experience difficulties in life. We may say things like, why is this happening to me? With self-pity, we're not able to step back from the situation and gain a broader perspective because we're stuck with this poor me. When we experience self-compassion, we can take a step back and put things in perspective in a larger context. So now with self-compassion, there are three core components according to Christine Neff: self-kindness, shared humanity, and mindfulness. So let's focus on the first one and see how it's different from self-judgment. So when we experience self-kindness, our heart may soften. We can experience a sense of lightness, peace, warmth, expansion, perhaps full and deep breaths. But of course, this is a subjective experience and it varies. But overall, we experience pleasant feelings and thoughts. In contrast, when we experience self-judgment, we notice a harsh tone of voice. We may blame ourselves, experience frustration, inadequacy, disturbing thoughts and feelings. And we end up harshly criticizing ourselves for various shortcomings or inadequacies. Now, as we are developing a self-compassion practice, we can find ourselves navigating all the spaces in between the self-kindness and self-judgment, all the gray areas in between. Research shows that practicing unconditional self-acceptance is a crucial step to soften that harsh self-criticism. Now, if you're a person who like to set up goals and you find that as a way to motivate yourself, and then you review your experience, and then you want to provide some feedback about how you did something, or how you were not as successful as you wanted to be, perhaps what you can do is use constructive self-criticism, but not the harsh one. You can still develop a healthy relationship with yourself while you are using constructive self-criticism. So it is important to acknowledge that self-kindness is not a culturally valued behavior. Somehow we get the message that personal strength means ignoring our own suffering and moving away from it as quickly as possible. So self-kindness involves understanding and accepting our shortcomings and failures while soothing and calming our troubled minds. When we are able to accept our reality with kindness, we have greater chances to experience emotional equanimity. Our brains or bodies have the innate capacity to give and receive care. All mammals are born with an attachment system that allows us for strong emotional bonds. Caring is a natural behavior to us because without it, our species would not be able to survive. When we soothe our pain, we are tapping into the mammalian caregiving system. One simple way to soothe and comfort ourselves is to give us a gentle hug. Our skin is a very sensitive organ, and research demonstrates that physical touch releases oxytocin, which calms cardiovascular stress, provides a sense of security, and helps us manage distressing feelings. So a lot of good reasons to, during moments of stress or difficulties, just to perhaps, if that helps, take a deep breath, just maybe a quick squeeze, maybe just gentle strokes, and just to connect to yourself and acknowledge what's happening in the moment. So now, moving on to the second core component, shared humanity versus isolation. Okay, I'm sorry, I just slipped here. So shared humanity is what we talked about, the fact that when we are facing suffering, that we can develop that sense of belonging instead of experiencing our difficulties in isolation, which will be self-pity. And then the mindfulness awareness versus over identification, that relates to the fact that when we are able to connect to our experience in the here and now, staying away from judgment with an open and curious attitude, we are more likely to experience things as they are with a more objective reality. We can step back, assess what's going on, and choose how we want to relate to it. Sometimes we fall into the over identification when we identify ourselves with our thoughts or with our feelings, and then we lose perspective. For example, when we say things like I'm an angry person or I'm a depressed person, that will be an example of over identification, instead of saying, right now in this moment, I'm experiencing anger, or right now I feel hopeless. So that's something that it's important to distinguish. So here are some benefits of cultivating self-compassion. So it helps to decrease symptoms of anxiety, depression, secondary traumatic stress, and exhaustion at the workplace. And regarding relationships, it promotes genuine, close, and mutually supportive interactions, because we're able to be more authentic in life. We're able to accept ourselves fully as we are, and therefore we end up being more authentic. And those relationships, we're able to develop like deeper levels of intimacy. So we included here a quote from Brené Brown: compassionate people are boundaried people. So Brené Brown stated that boundaries are a prerequisite for compassion and empathy. We cannot relate to someone unless we are clear where we end and when the other person begins. Without a sense of autonomy among people, there's no relationships, compassion, or empathy. It's just enmeshment. People who identify themselves as people pleasers may have difficulty setting healthy boundaries, as they tend to internalize other people's needs and experiences and take responsibility for those. They feel responsible for those people. The challenge about setting boundaries is mainly rooted in the belief that if we prioritize ourselves over others, we're being selfish. A lot of us are conditioned to think this. A lot of us are conditioned to disregard our own needs to some extent. But what happens when we feel emotionally depleted or drained, physically exhausted, and yet we show up for others? So that's something that is important to reflect on, because oftentimes we feel we experience resentment. And a different view recognizes that boundaries reflect self-respect and respect for the other person. Healthy boundaries promote genuine relationships as we feel confident to reveal our authentic selves. And here we added a quote from Viktor Frankl. If you're familiar with one of the books that I really like about him is The Man in Search of Meaning. So the quote says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So to me, this reminds me of the opportunity to take a step back and create that space in between myself and what's happening in my life, and connect to that experience, and bring in that mindfulness, right? And just to be present. And that response comes from a place of empowerment, choosing how we want to respond. I think this is a beautiful quote. Okay, so I've been talking a lot, so now let's take a break from our minds and let's check in with our bodies. So going back to you, Vicky. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandra. So how do we integrate all that we have heard so far? How do we start practicing and cultivating self-compassion? How do we start practicing these principles to apply them in our daily life, at home, at the workplace, with our colleagues, family, and friends? So here the invitation is one more time to go inward, to turn all our senses inward, to start developing awareness regarding our behavioral patterns and self-judgment tendencies, and igniting a sense of curiosity and self-reflection. So self-compassion starts with us and within us. So can we be compassionate with ourselves in the midst of our perceived failures and disappointments? Can we become aware of our judgmental voice, the not good enough voice in the background? Can we embrace what is in this very moment with warmth, understanding, support, and kindness? Can we focus on opening our hearts and expanding instead of focusing on what is right? Can we just accept ourselves as we truly are in this very moment, right here and right now? So for next slide, thank you, Alejandra. So how do we create an environment that supports this practice of mindfulness and self-compassion? Maybe it is time to ask yourself, in case you haven't not done it yet, is what does bring comfort into my life? What brings a feeling of safety and tranquility in my environment? So whether at home or at the workplace, it is important that we create a comfortable atmosphere that fosters that feeling of relaxation and keep us away from all the stimuli from the outside world. So maybe sitting in a comfy chair or on the floor, maybe laying down on a yoga mat if that's available to you. Have a journal, notebook, and pen handy to later write any insights, any memories, or draw images that arose during that mindfulness practice. Bring a cushion or a pillow for padding, a warm blanket or a pashmina, just to feel warm and cozy. And have some hot water or hot tea or maybe a chocolate, if you're a chocoholic like me. And finally, add whatever inspires you comfort. So for those of you, some of you may be a precious object, a picture of a loved one, a plant, a flower, a crystal. Maybe you prefer to light a candle or an incense. You can also add some soft music in the background to bring a feeling of calmness and ease. So the invitation here is to explore what makes you feel good at home within yourself and your surroundings. And for the next practice, our invitation here is to follow this practice known as emotional diffusion technique. And this is an invitation to bring to your awareness a situation that feels incomplete or make you feel uncomfortable somehow. And it could be a situation from your personal life or from your workplace or any other setting. Please remember that this is only an invitation. If this practice does not resonate or nothing comes up for you right now, you can follow the guidance and notice whatever appears in your field of awareness. No expectations and no judgment. There's no right or wrong here. So it just is what it is. We recommend, if possible, choosing a situation that does not feel too overwhelming. So if you had to rate from 0, a mild situation, to 10, a disturbing situation, maybe choosing something in the scale of 5 or below. This is just to keep it safe. The invitation is to notice any sensations and emotions that arise as we think about that specific event through observation of breath and feelings, processing and integrating the experience, and finally letting go any effort to control the outcome. So in order to do this, let's start by bringing our awareness to the breath one more time. Notice how you're seated, lengthening your spine again, finding a tall seat. And here again, become aware of the rising and falling of the breath. You can have your hands resting on your lap or hands on the heart and the belly. And without any effort, start deepening the breath. And now bring into awareness that situation that feels incomplete or feels a bit uncomfortable. And if nothing has come up yet for you, just relax and observe that. If your chosen situation is clear to you, feel it fully. Make it very real for you, as if you were in the middle of it right now. Notice where you feel this event in your body. Fully observe the range of sensation. And if no sensations arrive for you at the moment, notice that as well. If you were to describe the sensation, what would you say? What does it feel like? And just be aware. Now breathe into that place of sensation and use the breath to be with what is there without trying to make it go away. Just use the breath to hang out with it. Breathe into it and just let it be as it is. And simply observe what you're aware of now. And truly feel the sensation. If it has changed or moved, stay with it. Not trying to avoid any part of the experience. Let it be fully felt, as if to say to it, I am willing to feel you. Give it full permission to be, experiencing without trying to change anything. It just is. Breathe with it, stay with it, and simply observe what you're aware of now. And create a space for what's there. Notice if there is any resistance to what you are feeling. Cultivate a sense of relaxation in the midst of all of it. Make no effort to control or manipulate. Be soft, spacious, and at ease. Continue to breathe with what is present. Make a space for it all to be. As if to say, it is okay that you're here. Simply observe what you're aware of now. If the sensation moves or changes, follow it patiently and easefully. Stay with the process. Remain present and be interested and curious about what you are feeling. If you feel yourself moving into avoidance, Breathe and come back to an openness to what you are feeling. Notice what happens in your body as you remain present, relaxed, and connected. Continue to use your breath and attention to be with it all just as it is. And simply observe what you are aware of now. Make a space for it all to be. It just needs to be acknowledged. Remove yourself from any tendency to control or resist. Just let it be as it is, without needing it to be any different. And now bring your attention to the space between the eyebrows. And drop below whatever is happening to a space of silence. Whether the sensation has shifted or not, allow integration to happen with where you are now. Feel yourself open and allowing, steady and centered. And rest back empty like a blue sky, pure capacity for experience to move through. Every cloud that comes eventually goes. As a sky, you can let it come and let it go. You know this place, pure, steady, timeless, like the sky itself. Rest here. You are here. Just be here in this moment. At this time, allow the wisdom of the body, mind to release what it no longer needs. You don't need to hold it anymore. Give it to the sky to hold it for you. And now begin to become aware of the rising and falling of the breath. And slowly, gradually, feel yourself beginning to come back into this shared space. And gradually, as you're ready, you're going to start bringing some gentle movements to your body. Take your time. Do not hurry. Regardless of what you consciously recognize that has or has not changed, know that something deep within has shifted. Become aware of your body and bring a deep sense of peace and contentment with you. So bring your attention back to your body. And notice how relaxed the body is, how soft the breath is, how quiet the mind is. Be still and be grateful, knowing that you can enter here again and again. Now take a moment to come back to this shared space. Keep a soft gaze. Notice if there are any movements that your body needs, maybe stretching again, wiggling fingers and toes, rolling hands and feet. And to complete the practice, maybe you can open the arms like wings. Cross the arms at the center of the chest, giving yourself a big hug, a big thank you for being here today, for taking this time to learn tools and cultivate self-compassion into your life, integrating some mindfulness practices to be able to share its benefits with others at home, in the workplace, with family, colleagues, friends, and offering yourself the gift to be fully present in the here and now, with a compassionate heart, with an open heart. So may I believe in myself. May I treat myself with kindness. May I remember that we are all human. Thank you, everyone, for accepting the invite one more time. So here, some suggested resources and mindfulness authors. You may be familiar with some of them. Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now and the New Earth. Thich Nhat Hanh, a Zen monk that wrote many wonderful books. Pema Chodron, who we have mentioned before here, one of the first Buddhist nuns in North America. Wonderful books, When Things Fall Apart, Start Where You Are. And Jon Kabat-Zinn, one of the first authors about mindfulness. And there are many others, so you can keep exploring and finding the authors that resonate with you and the mindfulness practices that resonate with you. And finally, just to bring some lightness and ease, practicing being imperfect. So accepting and being who you really are. I think that's the biggest challenge, involving self-compassion and cultivating self-compassion. Yes, just know that we are already whole and complete as we are. Remember to bring that sense of humor, that lightness into your life. And knowing that the more you show self-compassion towards yourself, the more you develop self-compassion towards yourself, then the more you will be able to be there for others with the same quality and the same awareness and understanding. And thank you everyone again for accepting the invitation. Going inward sometimes is not easy, but it is necessary for our emotional well-being, and it's as well a gift to share with those around us. I hope you enjoy the practice. Thank you, and I pass it to you, Alejandra.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Vicky. Thank you, everyone, for participating in this webinar. We included a list of references, and I understand that this information will be available to you. So now we have a few minutes for those of you who would like to share the experience of being in this webinar or questions. So feel free to just connect through the chat. And I think, Vicky, we can help each other with the chat. I've never done this before, so we'll try our best. And if we make mistakes, this will be an opportunity to practice self-compassion. Okay.
Yes, Alejandra, thank you.
Yeah, so I see that some people are asking for slides and the material, so that will be emailed to you. If that's is that that's my understanding. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So what I'm going to be doing now is the chat is open. So if there's any questions or any comments that you'd like to make, please feel free to put them in the chat. I will also be inserting a link to a post-webinar survey if you had the time to please complete that. But I will also be following up with all participants with the resources from this webinar today, also the survey link again, and any additional things that the presenters would like to share. I'll have all that information in a post webinar survey being sent out to everybody. But if you have any questions right now that you'd like to take the time to ask in person, please feel free to type it out in the chat, and I can help to make sure that your question is answered.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, thank you. Okay, I see some thank you. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very soothing. Okay, I hope I know that Vicky has a very soothing voice, and if you are at your workplace, that you didn't fall asleep. Yeah, that you can continue with the energy that you need to go through your day. Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yes, and
wonderful.
a reminder that will be the recording of the webinar. So if you'd like to come back to this and practice at home or in a setting that where you feel more comfortable, and you're welcome to do so.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I see people mentioning that the practice helped to release some tension. That's wonderful news. Yeah.
Yes, release tension in the upper backs, yeah, and shoulders and neck. This is an area where most of us hold tension, and we almost carry the weight of the world in our shoulders, as it is usually said. It's good to know that. Thank you, everyone, for your feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see any questions on my end right now.
Okay.
But I did share the link for the webinar survey if you don't mind filling that out. But I will definitely follow up with everybody via email. And I'd just like to mention that if you'd like any additional resources or any more information, please visit the Care to Speak website on the Care for Caregivers website. It's an initiative with Safe Care BC, CMHA BC, and it's funded by the Ministry of Addictions and Mental Health. It's a great resource for anyone who wants more resources and support on mental health, and especially if you are willing, if you're looking to speak with somebody. We definitely encourage you to visit our site and also use our resources. There's one question. It says, thank you so much. My question would be, can over-compassion enmesh or decree accountability?
Oh, okay. Can you say that one more time, please?
Sure. So the question was, thank you so much. My question would be, can over-compassion enmesh or decree accountability?
Yeah, that's a good question. In the sense that sometimes self-compassion can be misinterpreted as a way to get away with things. I don't see how we can practice over self-compassion. But self-compassion doesn't take away the possibility to take responsibility for our failures or for our mistakes. Self-compassion emphasizes the relationship that we build with ourselves and base that on self-kindness and self-love. I don't think that that can kind of enmesh the sense of responsibility, because you can still take responsibility, but with self-respect, without being condescending. That's my understanding. It's about how you relate to yourself during times of suffering or when we make mistakes. That's the emphasis, but not as a way to avoid taking responsibility. Is how you talk to yourself during that time, how you relate to yourself when that happens. Are you using a harsh voice, like harsh criticism, or you're acknowledging the facts and relating to yourself with self-respect and self-love? That's my understanding. I hope that clarifies the question.
That was wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think that was the only question that came through that I see on the chat. If there's any others that are direct messages or anybody else sees, let me know.
Okay. I don't see anything else from my end.
Okay, great.
Okay, people.
Right.
Yeah, feeling thankful. Thank you.
Hopefully everybody's way too relaxed.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
If you are
Thank you so
relaxed,
much to the presenters, Alejandra and Vicky. We really appreciate your time. This was wonderful.
thank you.
A small
Thank
portion
you.
of our day that was really such a treat. for many of us. So I appreciate it very much. And again, I will be following up with all the resources if anybody missed anything or arrived late, as well as the Care for Caregivers website and the Care to Speak resources for anybody that's interested. Please, I encourage you to visit and make use of those resources. And if you have any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to email me. I will try my best to connect you with whatever you're looking for. So thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.